It's always crazy how quickly race weekends passes by and then the work week is upon you again. That kind of sucks. For the last 3 weekends, I've been riding on track, so who am I to complain with the ample track time that I've been getting? NEMRR just wrapped up. It is now Wednesday, the week after race weekends. Is always a withdrawal week while everybody writes up their reports and wait for the photos to come out. I am trying to get this race report done sooner rather than later with all the other video projects I have, but it's also nice to take a quick breather from track riding, if you can say breather in any case now, because it's 100 degrees outside and it's not any better in this garage. I'm sweating like a pig. The weather up here has been scorching the last couple of weeks, but fortunately for NEMRR, it was actually pretty mild in comparison to the rest of the the weather we've been experiencing. I started off riding with Penguin at Thompson a couple weekends ago in 95-degree weather. That wasn't fun, but you can definitely check it out up here. And then for the 4th of July weekend, I spent it with Cycle Smith down at Palmer. So needless to say, a lot more seat time than I've gotten all year, and I'm pretty happy about it. I really just been wanting to ride this bike more and more, and finally found some gaps in my schedule where it allowed me to be at the track. The race weekend, I do have notes, and I should do these as they happen, but I don't. Let's go. First practice, I went out there not really knowing where I was going. I almost ran into the wall exiting turn 2, going onto the NASCAR straight. If I didn't drink a cup of coffee that morning, I certainly didn't need it after a close call over there. The only other notes I can mention in practice, getting devoured by all the other bikes, especially the motards. I just felt this past practice, they were just out in full force, gunning for everything, because it was wild how many motards were just left, right, up, down, AB, passing me and stuff. So kudos to you guys, man. You guys are nuts. But I also followed an expert in a couple of the corners. I've changed up my line going into 6, and also how I take the last section of the track, exiting 11 and going into the last chicane. I think that's helped a lot. Overall, practice was great. I was able to work my way back up into the 26.5s. Yeah, I've never been one of those guys that can just turn up and turn laps quickly. I always just like to build on a base and then just keep working for it and working for it. Friday overall was a really good practice day. I was really happy with my pace. You know, overall, it was just a good day to be at the track. So Saturday morning, the weather was a little bit overcast with some mist. I wasn't really too worried about it raining. It wasn't in the forecast, but it's New England in the summertime with the hot, humid weather. We're prone to get some thunderstorms. By the time it was 10 o'clock, everything seemed to be a-okay. The weather was heating up, and then the fog that was rolling in dissipated, so that was pretty cool. So Saturday morning practice. I honestly don't know what happened between Friday night and Saturday morning. I couldn't get into the 130s for the life of me. Like, it just wasn't working. I don't know if it was me or the bike. I completely thought it was me, that I just wasn't up to snuff. Second practice, I could only get into the 128. Not to beat myself up, but like, I just, you know, it's one of those things where you're wondering like where your pace go. I honestly was wondering that myself too. Saturday for me was a very quick one. My girlfriend came up, she hung out to watch some of the races and support the guys and stuff like that. When it came down to my first race, I hopped onto the bike, put it into gear, and I let the clutch go. The bike wasn't churning, the chain wasn't spinning, the wheel wasn't going anywhere, and I put into second, third, fourth, fifth gear. Nothing was happening. I thought I had toasted the clutch, and I had a race and then a break and then another race. So there was really no way, if it was a clutch issue, that I could remedy it with that time span to make it out for my second race of Saturday. So I had to just call it quits at that point and kind of just try to figure out if it was a clutch problem. I ended up going around to the paddock and asking if anybody had a spare clutch pack. Yeah, I'm running a Yoyodyne 5-spring slipper in this, so that was really a big ask, and I don't think I got any response that was, yes, Jason, I have a clutch pack that you could use. So I kind of just chalked it up as we're just gonna have to take this bike home and rebuild it. It was really weird because all of Friday it was performing well. The only time it had a hiccup was Saturday morning, and honestly I thought it was a clutch pack. I went by and I checked my chain slack, and it was super slacked out. I don't remember ever adding that much chain slack to my bike. So then I thought, oh no, it's the transmission, it's the output shaft, something's wrong. I was spinning the wheel up against my shift rod, and it was actually, the chain was actually hitting my shift knuckle at the actuator, which was not good. I was kind of having a panic attack about that. You know, like if I blew the transmission, this isn't going to be great. I ended up pulling out the sprocket cover, and lo and behold, the nut and the washer that held the sprocket on, well, the washer disappeared. It exploded in my into my belly pan the night before when I was taking this bike to tech. I thought it was just some debris from the track that miraculously fell into my belly pan, you know, kind of just in big denial. But it was actually the washer plate that you bend to hold the bolt onto the output shaft so it doesn't come undone. That washer piece exploded, and then my bolt came undone, and my front sprocket came off of the spline and was just hanging on by the end of the transmission output shaft. My first thought was, oh man, where am I gonna find a bolt this size? Well, I found it in the back of my engine, so luckily that part was still there. The washer was kaput. In a desperate attempt to make my races on Sunday, I opted to put red Loctite on my front sprocket bolt and torqued it down, so that front sprocket won't leave for a little while. But in happier news, the bike works again. Thank you. So that takes us to Sunday, because Saturday was just quick and easy like that, you know. Sunday, first race, Moto 3. We had a whopping 4-rider grid. I don't know, like I said in my last video, I don't know where everybody has gone to. Please come back and race Moto 3 with me. It's a lot of fun. We have cookies and brownies if you guys come back and race. Yeah. But no, it was a grid of 4. Kelsey was pole. I was gridded in second. Kate was third, and I think Christian, I'm not sure his name, 504 was in fourth. If we can just finish, I'll just be happy. But I felt really good. I thought maybe my pace was good enough to actually win this race. Plot twist, it wasn't, but I'll get into that a little bit later. As soon as the lights went out, I felt like I had a really solid launch. The front end did come up a little bit, so I weighted it down. I thought I had the whole shot going into turn 1, but Kelsey, she kept it open a little bit longer than I did and got on the brakes a little bit later than I did, and then just went around the outside of me, and I said, fair play, fair play. And from that moment on, for the next 5 laps, I was just behind her, making sure I kept her honest as best as I could. But I can see the gap going from 0.3 of a second the first lap to a half a second to a full second, and it was just like that, like I said, for the next 5 laps. I kept making small incremental mistakes that ended up costing me big time. Some of those big mistakes was not catching a downshift into turn 11, which caused the bike to bog down the front straight, because it just had no oomph coming out of 12 at all. And also I ran wide into 3 and was passed by Kate. I also missed a short shift coming out of the bowl going up to 7. That one was a doozy because I was trying to catch her coming down into 9, and I just missing that short shift into 4th gear coming out of 6, 7, and 8 was very detrimental for me trying to catch up with her. So she ended up slipping away. The 7th lap, the last one, I tried my best to catch her, but she bested me today. Kelsey bested me that day, and I just tried to keep 504 behind me. When I saw the checkers, I was about 3 seconds off of first and a second off of second place, so you know, I'll take the 3rd place. I was able to run a 24.6, which wasn't bad, and that was at the last lap, so it felt good to have a little bit left in the tank. I wish I could have just done those lap times from the get, especially when I was trailing Kelsey. She kept me honest, it turns out, and I really appreciate that because it was a fun race, trying not to let her get away. I just really do enjoy seeing everyone that I race with get faster. It's one of those things where it just encourages me to work on my own program, and I'm gonna come back a little bit stronger next time. Moto 3 was a fun race, if not a little bit lonely. Next up, we got 500 Superbike. This one is the one that you grid up with expert and amateur, so it was actually one big wave. What had happened was the wave in front, I think it was somebody on a Supermoto, they had stalled and restarted, so that kind of gave us a delay for us getting out, and that comes into play a little bit later. But I ended up gridding up in 4th in the amateur class in 11D, which isn't the best spot because it's so close to the hot pit. I'd rather be somewhere between C, B, and A, 1 block up, but still, like, yeah, that isn't the best position to be in if that's where you're gridded. I had a pretty good launch when the lights went out, and I moved myself over into the racing line to try to gain positions, but now I realize after watching the clips over and over again that I brake a little bit too early going into turn 1 off of the line. So Stockford overtakes me because of my early braking into 1. Leary is clearly ahead of us, and Martell is actually, she's on my outside now going into turn 1, and I thought, nope, not today. So I hung it around the outside of 1A, and then I tried to have the line for the inside of 2 to keep her behind me for a little bit, and it actually worked out. So by the time that we were going down back straight into turn 3, there was already a pack forming, I think a 5-rider pack. I can see Leary and Stockford joining that pack. They weren't too far away from me, so I had hopes of trying to close that gap and catching back up to them a little bit later on in that lap. For the majority of the race though, I didn't really get shown a wheel. Then again, kind of like the last race weekend I was at, I didn't get to show anybody else a wheel either. It really came down to me having to lay off the Nutter Butters and getting back on my workout regimen. So yeah, my fitness is just not prime for myself, so I have nobody else to blame but me. We're just gonna keep it at that. Lay off the Nutter Butters, Jason. For some reason, barreling down the straight, I had noticed I was getting hit in the helmet and my windscreen with a lot of debris from the guys in front, ranged from just like little rocks to little tire boogers. So I was getting a lot of that kickback, and I was just like, what's going on here? That was just something that I noticed, you know. Coming back to the race start, how somebody had to get a push start to get going, that allowed the first wave to actually catch up to us quicker. So by the 4th or 5th lap, I was already getting lapped by the experts. Kind of just threw the mojo off, because usually it will be the 5th or 6th lap that you'll start seeing experts pass you, but this was a lap or two earlier, so I was just like, whoa, where are they coming from? And at that point, I just didn't know who was part of my race anymore, until you realize they're way faster, so like they're already passing you, so you are the lapper at that point. Here's another shocker. I left the door wide open in turn 3, and Glenn actually just took that invitation, came right in, swooped right up, and then was just in front of me for the rest of that race. I tried to close the gap on him like I tried on West in Moto 3, but he came out guns a-blazing that day, so respect to him and his Aprilia, because like they had more gusto than I did. Needless to say, I was fading by halfway, and I started off pretty strong. I was able to do a 24.8 in the first lap, but then the next couple of laps I was doing 25s, 25s, 26. By the last lap before the checkers came out, I was doing 25s again. So for me, the pace isn't that bad, but I rather would progressively work towards a faster lap time instead of going backwards and doing a fast lap time at the beginning and then progressively get slower. But overall, it was a great weekend hanging out with everyone at the track, seeing everybody up there racing and keeping the club scene fast and healthy with a lot of new participants coming in. And you know, like I love hanging out with my garage mates. Barbecues at the end of the days are something to look forward to. Chit chat, and we watch some of the races from Moto America and MotoGP in the paddock, so having movie nights is always a welcome up there. I don't plan to race round 5 because of personal life obligations. I do plan to race Saturday of round 6, so that is kind of the ender of my season, which is kind of a bummer because I had such high hopes going into 2025 with this bike and that class. There's a whole lot of riding left. I'm gonna do a couple more track days, a couple more rides with these other bikes that's been neglected in here. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. It's a quick one, but oh yeah, look here, 3rd place medal. You know, at this point it might as well be participation, but we're not gonna say that. We're gonna say it was hard earned. Yeah, something like that, I guess. I don't know. I will see you at the next round.